Good evening and welcome to Ramadan Moonsighting Live with the Royal Observatory Greenwich and the new Crescent Society. My name is Jake Foster. I'm one of the astronomers at the Royal Observatory Greenwich, and I am joined by my co-host Imad Ahmed, Director of the new Crescent Society. Imad, thank you so much for being here.
Well, it's an absolute honor to be here at Greenwich, Jake. As you know, it's the symbolic home of time itself, and we're here to measure time from the Islamic perspective. So very, very privileged to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely, and very well said. Now, for those who aren't aware of the new Crescent Society, how would you describe it? What is it, and what is the work that you do?
Great. We're an amateur astronomy organization that celebrates the relationship between astronomy, faith, and Islam. And as our name might suggest, we have a particular interest in the new crescent because it's the new crescent moon that we use to determine the Islamic calendar months. We also have a very special relationship with the Royal Observatory Greenwich, which includes a program called the Astronomy and Islam series, of which this show is one of our offerings. But we also have a planetarium show, which has been running monthly for almost 8 years now. And that's a very popular show. Every single show has sold out. So 11,000 of you have come to view that show. So thank you so much for coming. And we're looking forward to the rest of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are interested in coming along to one of our astronomy and Islam shows, you can just go to rmg.co.uk and search for astronomy and Islam. As Imad said, they sell out. So, you know, if you're interested, do make sure you get your tickets in good time. They will be on sale very, very soon, but all the dates are listed up there on the website right now. Now, this evening, we are following the search for the new crescent moon to mark the start of Ramadan, and we want you to get involved as well. So whether you are watching us on YouTube or on Facebook right now, please do leave us a comment or send us a question. We want to hear from you, and we will be answering your questions throughout the live stream, so please do send those in.
Absolutely.
Now, Imad, for those who are tuning in and they're not so familiar with the new crescent moon, why is it such an important thing in Islam?
Well, maybe I'll take a step back. Astronomy itself is very important to Islam because many of the ritual aspects of Islam rely on celestial bodies. So the times of prayer are determined by the position of the sun in the sky. Maybe not today, but Muslims used to use stars to navigate, but also to orient themselves towards Makkah because Muslims pray towards Makkah wherever they are on the earth. And of course, the new crescent moon, which we're looking for today, is very important because each calendar month begins with the physical observation and sighting of the new crescent moon, to the point that sometimes I don't call it a lunar calendar anymore. I refer to it as a lunar observation calendar because it's the sighting of the moon which commences each and every single Islamic month. Now, this month in particular is Ramadan, which is a very, very special and holy month for Muslims because they fast every single day from dawn to dusk. And it will be the sighting of this moon which will determine the day that they begin fasting. And a month later, it will be the sighting of the next new crescent moon, which will determine that their month has ended and that they can celebrate Eid Day.
Fantastic. Now, this evening, we're going to be following the search for the new crescent moon in a couple of different ways. But before we get on to that, what actually are our chances across the UK of seeing the moon this evening? Well, let's take a look at the global visibility map. And you can see here we've got our map of the world, and this data that is on this map comes courtesy of His Majesty's Nautical Almanac Office. And we've got a few different highlighted regions in different colours. Now, Imad, what is this map actually showing us?
Right, well, this is a predicted lunar visibility map, and it helps us have a very good estimate of where the moon will be seen on a given evening, so that's today. And as we can see towards the western part of the world, where we have the Americas and Mexico, it's that dark green color. It's an A code, if you can see the A there, which means it's easily visible to the naked eye. But as we move further and further east, you can see that the bands become yellow and orange, or parts of the world don't have a band over them at all, like Australia. And that means it's impossible to see. And so one of the features of the Islamic calendar actually is a local calendar. It means it's perfectly normal, natural and scientific that parts of the world will begin a month and parts of the world will not begin a month. So I've heard already from my family, who are from Bangladesh, that they didn't see the moon. And so they're not going to start Ramadan tomorrow, but they're going to wait an additional day. As for us in the UK, as you can see, we're split between two bands, D and E. which are defined as the D code. We will need an optical aid to find the crescent moon, or an E code up in Scotland, where it's not visible with a conventional telescope. So today, we don't think we're going to be able to see the moon, not with our eyes anyway, but it might be possible to see the moon using an optical aid.
So, as you say there, so across the UK, we're sort of split between the D region and the E region there. So, if that is the case, and that seems to be what the data is telling us, it won't be easy, or maybe not even possible, to see the moon without an optical aid. So if the moon this evening is only seen with an optical aid, does that still count?
That's an excellent question, and it's a question that Muslims have been debating in the modern period. And for some Muslims, yes, if you see the moon with a telescope, that's fine. But actually, for many Muslims, the moon is observed only by the eye. So our own position in New Crescent Society is we're looking for a unified position, a position that everybody agrees on. Not everybody agrees on the telescope, but everybody agrees that if you see the moon with your eye, the month begins. So we take the approach, we use our eyes. And in that way, actually, it keeps astronomy in the hands of the whole community and not in the hands of those special astronomers who are really good with their telescopes. It means that we all get to see the moon.
Yes, absolutely. And, well, if we should be so lucky to see it with our telescope this evening, what might it look like? What will it actually look like up in the sky? What shape will it take? Well, we do have an idea of what it will look like here. So there on the right-hand side, you can see that large black ball. Now, the moon won't actually look like that. What you would be able to see, perhaps with a pair of binoculars or a telescope, is the tiny white slither of light on the right-hand side of the moon. This evening, the new crescent moon is about 1% illuminated, even just a little bit under 1%, actually, which means if we think of the full moon, big and bright and beautiful, as being 100%, this is just 1% of that. So it really is very thin, very difficult to see. And in fact, the new crescent moon this evening is only 17 hours old. That means we are only 17 hours past the new moon phase, when the moon would not have been visible at all. Now, that doesn't mean that it's impossible, maybe, to see with the naked eye. I mean, the world records for naked eye new crescent moon sightings, some reliable reportings have been that it's been seen at 15 hours old, or some even 14 hours old. But those are quite extreme cases. So we can't really guarantee that it'll be possible to see this evening, unless it were under exceptionally good conditions. But stranger things have happened.
Yeah, and we're giving it a go. The data helps us have a sense of where the moon will be seen or not, but whether the data suggests it or not, we're always there having a look.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of it is going out to verify it, right? Even if it's not seen, that is still a result.
I think that's really important. It's an observational calendar. So the month begins by you having observed the moon, or the month begins by you saying, we looked and we didn't see the moon. And that's a very human experience that we have with the calendar. But it's also important to verify. Sometimes people think they've seen the moon when they've seen a planet, for example. That's happened to us before. And we get to respond by saying, actually, we've had hundreds of people looking. We had people looking in your area, and what you saw was Venus. And it's an easy mistake to make.
Yeah, brilliant. And so from here, one of the ways we're going to be looking for the moon this evening is with our very own telescope atop Flamsteed House up at the Royal Observatory here in Greenwich. Up there is our team, and among them is Dr. Greg Brown, operating the telescope, looking towards the western horizon to find the moon this evening. So, here to explain what he's going to be doing, here's Dr. Greg Brown.
Here we are on the roof of Flamsteed House at the Royal Observatory Greenwich, which is pretty much the tallest point around, giving us our lowest horizon and our best chance of being able to spot the new crescent moon this evening. Now, the telescope that we're going to be using to do that is this. It's the Skywatcher 127mm Maxitov. It's a telescope that has a 5-inch or 127mm aperture. That's just the size of the hole at the end of the telescope, the amount of light that you can get into it in one go. However, in reality, the size of the telescope, really not important for the object that we're observing this evening. The difficulties we're going to be facing have very little to do with the instrument that we're going to be using. Now, the telescope itself is a reflecting telescope. It does have a weak lens at the front, but the main way that it focuses the light is using a mirror at the back that bounces the light up to a secondary mirror up at the front again, which then bounces the light straight through the back of the telescope to our camera. Now, the camera we're going to be using today is actually a perfectly ordinary smartphone. It's not even the most recent model, doesn't need to be. The idea here is we're going to use an adapter to attach it onto the back of the telescope and give you a view that will be practically identical to what you would see looking through the telescope with your own eye. Now, this evening I am going to have a really tough job to do because the moon that we are looking for is going to be less than 1% illuminated. That is a very, very thin crescent moon. I'm only making use of a pair of binoculars to help me out. There are also some conveniently placed objects in the night sky that will help point me towards that object. And hopefully, if we end up with a clear view of the sky, maybe we'll be able to see the moon tonight.
Well, that was Dr. Greg Brown atop Flamsteed House, and he is up there this evening. Over the past few years, we've had really bad luck with the weather during these live streams, but this evening we've actually gotten lucky, which is great.
Well, I mean, it was very, very exciting. I'm really looking forward to seeing what's come through on the telescope screen though.
Yes, me too. Now, if you are just tuning in, welcome to Ramadan Moonsighting Live with the Royal Observatory Greenwich and the new Crescent Society. Now, we are going to take a look at the view through the telescope atop Flamsteed House roof. We're not expecting to have found the moon just yet, or, well, I mean, we don't know if we will find it. Of course, that's never a guarantee. But we are going to take a look at that view right now, because I believe we are having a little look at the skyline of London over in the west, and that is, well, that's the very tippy top of the Shard. The tallest building in London. And that's quite a view in itself, isn't it?
I mean, it's an incredible view. And to me, I'm just so excited to see this stream live from the telescope in Greenwich. I feel like we're at the cutting edge of tech right now. Very exciting. The first time we actually did our Ramadan live moon sighting, I think it was 2018, and we saw the new crescent moon setting just behind the tip of the Shard. And I can see a kind of circle there. I don't know if that's what Greg is indicating where the moon
I believe, yes, Greg is moving the view of the telescope around. And, well, look at that. You can see how magnified we are as well. We really are quite zoomed in because the Shard, I mean, it's a massive building, but it's quite far away from Greenwich. So it gives you a bit of an idea of just how zoomed in we actually are with this telescope. Now, while we're just taking a lovely little look at the Shard there, we're going to answer a couple of questions now. So, we've got a few questions that have come in. I mean, one of the first questions, in fact, this came in before we started. And again, if you are viewing and you'd like to ask us a question, do send them in. But a question that came in before we even started was, why do we end up having different dates for the start of Ramadan?
This is an excellent question. Thank you to whoever it is that asked that question. And the answer to that question is really to do with the history of Muslims in the British Isles. Actually, this is what my PhD is about. I'm doing a PhD at Cambridge University on the history of the Islamic calendar here in the UK. And a very simple way of framing this question is that when Muslims arrived, most Muslims in the UK are from migrant backgrounds. Like my father, he came from Bangladesh. They did actually try and sight the moon, but they struggled, partly due to the weather, and I think partly because of the infrastructure. And they said, wow, we just keep looking for the moon and we can't see it. What should we do? And they sought advice from scholars from other parts of the world. I've seen letters, really lovely letters. We can't see the moon. This country's so cloudy, foggy, smoggy. Actually, one of the things are smoggy. What should we do? And the answer that they tended to arrive on, and it's present today, is that most mosques outsource their moon sighting to another country. So some mosques, for example, will outsource their moon to Saudi Arabia. That's a very common country. Other mosques will follow the moon of another country. Morocco, South Africa, and Turkey are some of the countries followed in the UK. But as we saw in the map earlier, not every country or every location sees the crescent moon on the same date. So as long as mosques or Muslims in the UK are following different countries in different localities, it's inevitable here in the UK we're going to celebrate Ramadan and Eid on different dates. And what New Crescent Society has offered in a new and unique way is to set up a network of moonsighters, and we're going to meet the moonsighters today, who have gone out for almost 8 years now, and we've demonstrated it's a myth, it's not that cloudy in the UK, but you do need to work together. Sometimes we don't see in Greenwich, but we see in Cardiff. Sometimes we don't see in Cornwall, but we see in Glasgow. But in this way, when the community works together, we can have a united traditional Islamic calendar here in the UK, and we hope to work with Greenwich to be able to bring that into fruition, because Greenwich is where time finds consensus, and we're looking for a consensus in our calendar too.
Absolutely, well said. You mentioned the moonsighters there, and that's what we're going to come to right now. So we will answer some more questions a little bit later, and we will come back to that view of the telescope later. We'll give Greg a little bit of time to continue his search for the new crescent moon.
It's so exciting.
Over towards the west, and we'll come back to that in just a little bit. But as Imad just said, we do have moonsighters from the New Crescent Society. This evening, they are spread out across the UK in various different locations. We've got just a few of the locations mapped out here. And this is not an exhaustive list. There's more than even we've got listed here. But we've got various locations across the UK, across England, Wales, and Scotland. We've even got a moon sighting group down in Jersey, and as well in my own home city of Norwich, which I'm very happy to see. Now, we are going to be talking to those moonsighters because they are out there moonsighting right now, and hopefully we're going to be speaking to one right about now. Hopefully we'll be speaking to them in just a moment. So it could be anywhere.
It could be anywhere, and we've got a great spread. We've got a moon site in Cornwall as well. You know, there's no red dot there. He'll be upset with me if he's not represented. But we've got moon sighters all across the country. And this is, I think, what a calendar means. A calendar is how a community or group of people, or the whole world even, decide on how we communicate time to one another. So that community feeling is really there. I think we've got somebody coming up. Oh, this is fantastic. Hello, assalamu alaikum. Who am I speaking to? This looks like Azhara from Sheffield, I think it is.
Nice seeing you all.
It's great to see you. How are you? Tell us your name. Tell us where you're from. It looks like you've got a big crowd behind you.
3, 2, 1, go. We are live in Sheffield, and we are really excited to be here. We are sighting for the first time, many of us, mashallah. And we are so happy to be gathered here. We've got about 150 guests. We are connecting our community, our faith, and nature in one place for the sake of Allah, alhamdulillah. And thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for having us on the show. We really appreciate the Greenwich Observatory for putting this on. Jazakallah khair, and thank you.
Thank you so much. This is... Oh. We've got a big group here of 150 sighters or so, and I think they're in Sheffield. Have you? What's the skies like before we move on to our next sighters? Have you been able to see the sunset clearly? Any signs of the moon or any of the planets?
So we've got the astronomer there, Jeff. We are about to look into the telescope as well. So for the skies have been partly cloudy and clear. So far, we haven't been able to sight the moon with the naked eye. We are persevering.
You're persevering. Thank you so much, Azhara, and thank you so much to everybody in Sheffield.
Okay, all of you say Assalamu
alaikum, and we're going to move on to our next sighter. That's incredible. And actually, I spoke to these sighters before today, and they've worked with their local astronomy group. And they have an astronomer there, and they've got their own telescope set up there. And I've told them, if you see the moon, you have to let us know.
Incredible. How did you say how many people were there?
150 people are gathered there in Sheffield today. That's just one location.
Incredible. Yeah, it's worth noting when we point out the different locations on this map, it's not just 1 or 2 people at these places. Sometimes it's over 100 people.
So it's a huge gathering at some place, very festive, big community vibe, because everyone wants to know, is it Ramadan tomorrow?
Yes. So, yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you sort of what the atmosphere is. It's sort of a celebratory vibe across, you know, these moon sighting
Absolutely.
groups.
And actually in the... well, I think somebody else is coming, but it's very celebratory. Some of them, they have picnics. Some of them, they have food. Some of them, they have singing. As you can see with this one, there are a lot of children involved. So I would encourage anybody out there who's interested in looking for the moon, don't go by yourself and take somebody with you. And here we have... Looks like we've got Christopher from London. How are you, Christopher?
Hey, Assalamu alaikum, Imad. How are
Walaikum
you?
salam. Tell us where you are and what's your view?
So I am on the roof of my mosque. Here you can see the dome.
Amazing. Well, I can see a crescent there. I'm not sure it's the crescent I've been looking for.
Yeah, I don't think it's the crescent we're looking for, but I'm on Leytonstone Mosque roof, my usual sighting place, and I'm super excited because it's Ramadan Moonsighting time.
Incredible. Tell us, how long have you been sighting for, Christopher?
I've been sighting since Ramadan 2019.
2019,
So 6 years.
so 6
A long
years.
time.
And you go every single month. And
Every single
you're
month,
actually
yeah.
one of our roaming moon sighters as well. Sometimes you've gone to Cornwall, Land's End, Devon, where there's better sighting locations. Can I ask you, Christopher, before we move on to our next sighter, what keeps you going month on month?
I just absolutely love it. For me, it's the connection. Starting each month, connecting to creation.
That's right, connecting to creation, something I really resonate with as well. Thank you so much, Christopher, on the roof there with a dome and a crescent, but not the crescent we're looking for.
Yes, yes. But very nice. I remember Christopher calling in last year as well, and it's always great to see people, to see familiar faces again.
He's one of the most dedicated moon sighters, and actually what I find, when people start to see the moon for themselves, they turn into lunatics. They love it, and Christopher mentioned this sense of connection, and I can really resonate with that because I look for the moon as well, and every time I see the moon, I kind of have a sense, we're halfway through the lunar month, or we're coming to the end of the month, and it just feels lovely to be aligned to these celestial timepieces.
Yeah, absolutely. We will come back to our moon sighters again. We're going to be talking to them lots more during this live stream, but we are going to move ahead because one of the things people might be wondering, if they're not familiar with moon sighting, if they're not very familiar with I suppose with astronomy, they might wonder why we are seeing a new crescent this evening at all. Why does the moon appear to change shape across the month?
Great question.
And so the reason for that, in fact, we've got a sort of a little animation that we can show you here. And let's explain here, why are we seeing the things that we're seeing? So hopefully we're going to show you a little animation to explain the phases of the moon to you. And well, hopefully we can bring you that. Yes, here we go, fantastic. So why does the moon have phases? Well, this is all because the moon is orbiting around the Earth. The Earth's gravity pulls onto the moon and holds it in a nice stable orbit. And as the moon orbits the Earth, sunlight shines on the moon and reflects off of it. The only reason we can actually see the moon is because of that sunlight bouncing off of its surface. So the moon doesn't emit any light of its own. We are totally reliant on that sunlight. Depending on where the moon is in its orbit, we'll see different amounts of the near side of the moon. And that leads us to the phases that we see. A full cycle of phases lasts 29 and a half days. So we begin the cycle with the moon directly in between the sun and the Earth. Now, they're not always in a perfectly straight line, because that would be a solar eclipse. But during a new moon, you cannot see the moon because the sun is shining on the far side. Over the course of the next couple of weeks or so into the phase, we see more and more sunlight across the near side until eventually that reaches its maximum during a full moon. Then, as the moon continues in its orbit, moving very fast, about 1 kilometer every second, we slowly begin to lose that sunlight. It begins to wane, as we call it, and you lose that sunlight from the near side until, after the full 29 and a half days, the cycle is complete and we're back to the new moon again. So that naturally sort of throws up another question for us, which is, if we have a cycle of phases that lasts 29 and a half days, how in the Islamic calendar do we settle that with a 29 and a half day cycle?
That's a great question. Of course, a month can't be 29 and a half days long. And the way that Muslims organize this is very straightforward and very simple, which is on the 29th of every month, and today is the 29th of the Islamic calendar month, although it's the 28th of February, it's the 29th, we go out and look for the moon. And if we see the moon, it means the month has come to an end, and that month had 29 days. But if we don't see the moon, then we'll round up and we'll default to 30 days. And across the year, you'll find that it averages out about 50-50, or 6 months and 6 months of 29 days and 30 days each. So it's an unpredictable calendar, actually. We'll be fasting Ramadan, and we won't know. We will be fasting for 29 or 30 days until the end of the month.
There we go. Right. So from here, I mean, we are hoping to bring you a live image of the moon this evening through our telescope. But, you know, for nearly 200 years now, people have been taking photographs of the moon in different ways. But what goes into an award-winning photograph of the moon? Well, every year here at the Royal Observatory, we run the Astronomy Photographer of the Year competition, where astrophotographers from across the globe compete to be crowned the Astronomy Photographer of the Year. So what goes into an award-winning image of our closest celestial neighbor, the moon? Well, take a look at this. Excellent.
Io riprendo principalmente dal mio giardino perché comunque i miei setup sono parecchio pesanti da trasportare, quindi trovo più comodo riprendere vicino casa. E la luna è molto facile da riprendere nella mia zona perché fortunatamente sale sempre sopra le case che ho vicine in modo importante e quindi non ho problematiche evidenti. L'immagine che è stata selezionata per la shortlist è Moon Big Mosaic. La difficoltà nel riprendere un grande mosaico lunare sta nel trovare le stesse condizioni per tutta la durata della sessione, per avere tutte queste singole immagini in alta risoluzione con uguale incisione. Il secondo problema legato appunto alla creazione dei mosaici lunari è l'unione di questi mosaici che deve essere fatta accuratamente e in modo manuale. Ovviamente l'astrofotografia non è solamente la parte principale della mia passione per l'astronomia, ma ho anche un gruppo di amici con cui guardo le stelle, con cui riprendo la volta celeste e con cui mi ritrovo regolarmente per condividere la nostra passione. Come lavoro faccio l'educatore in una cooperativa che lavora con la disabilità e mi piace ogni tanto portare il mio telescopio per far osservare ai nostri ragazzi il cielo sopra di noi. Il mio desiderio è quello di portare l'astronomia a grandi e piccini, in modo che questa grande passione possa essere non solo mia e di tanti altri, ma anche di tantissime altre persone.
Moon Big Mosaic. That was a winner in the Our Moon category of the Astronomy Photographer of the Year competition a few years ago. And if you're interested in seeing the world's best space photography, the Astronomy Photographer of the Year exhibition is ongoing at the National Maritime Museum here in Greenwich, and it's completely free. So if you'd like to go and visit it, you can book your free ticket at rmg.co.uk. From here, we're going to go back to our view through the telescope, and it's worth noting we are looking at Venus right now. We are looking at the planet Venus, though you might notice it is taking on a crescent shape. That is because, well, Venus takes on phases in the same way that the moon does. It reflects sunlight, and depending on what angle that sunlight is coming in at, we do see it in phases. So do not be fooled. That is not the moon. That's a crescent Venus.
That's so interesting that you say that, because it has happened in the past in our own groups that we've had people, I've seen the moon. And when we looked, and it was actually, they had seen Venus, but in a bit more of a crescent shape. But it's so beautiful to see.
It's completely understandable as well. And one of the difficulties, I suppose, as well, when you're using an optical aid, binoculars or a telescope, that if you do stumble across Venus, you might see it looking very similar to the moon. Yeah, absolutely. Now, we've got some more questions that have come in, so we'll do just a couple here. So one question here. Well, there's lots of good questions here. I saw one that said, what time should I be looking for the moon in the UK? The answer really is right now.
Right now, yeah.
Yes, the moon's going to set below the horizon in about 15 minutes, right when this live stream ends. So actually, the time to look for the moon is between now and the end of the live stream. Though, please do stick with us as well.
That's right. I think actually a bit of a misconception that people have about the moon is they're not aware that the moon is tracking the sun today. Mm-hmm. The moon's been in the sky the whole day. It's just behind the sun, if you like, if I was looking at the moon in the horizon. And so the moon rises and the moon sets. And as I've worked with the community, I've understood that some people think that the new crescent just appears in the sky. But actually it was in the sky all along. We just couldn't see it, as we saw in your lunar phases video.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I mean, that's lovely, that's beautiful, that's Venus. But we are now going to let Greg continue to look for the moon, because that is not our main, Venus is not our main target, but it is beautiful to see the second closest planet to the sun, Venus, there through the telescope from the roof of Flamsteed House up at the observatory. But from here, now we want to talk to more of our moon sighters from the new Crescent Society who are across the UK this evening. So hopefully in a few moments,
great.
we can
So
bring them
let's
through.
see who we've got. Oh, assalamu alaikum. We have Rahma, I think, from Cambridge. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you, Rahma? What's going on in Cambridge? I just want to introduce Rahma
I'm
myself.
well, we're well. There's a huge group here,
Wow.
and it's incredibly busy because today we're also joined by all the planet sighters.
Incredible. And where are you right now? So just I want to say, Rahma is an astrophysicist. She's completed a master's in astrophysics in Cambridge University, and she's currently doing a PhD. We're very happy and privileged to have her as one of our lead moon sighters. Tell us a bit about what's going on in Cambridge. What's the atmosphere like?
It is buzzing. Maybe if I show you a little bit, there's a lot of people here,
Wow. Okay. It's a huge crowd.
and it's a really special occasion where the Muslims of the community are being joined by the people who are also looking towards the sky, not only for the moon, but for all the planets. So there are a lot of Muslims here, but I think it's a very special occasion to have these two communities come together this day.
It is very special, and of course, astronomy brings everybody together. Thank you so much, Rahma. We're going to go on to our next set of moon sighters. It seems that you haven't seen the moon, and thanks for joining us again from Cambridge. Thank you, Rahma.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we're going to move on to some more moon sighters if we have them. But again, another really, really big crowd.
Yes.
And what I find fascinating is Rahma is an astrophysicist leading that, and her community know that the moon's going to be very difficult to see.
Yeah.
And yet they still go out and sight the moon. That
Yeah.
dedication is so impressive and inspiring.
It is, it's really lovely to see, and we were talking before the live stream about it's great to see this community, and the community is also growing all the time. More and more people are going out moon sighting in the UK.
It's incredible. When I started, I think there was 2 of us or 3 of us, and now I can't count with my fingers and toes anymore how many people sight the moon, and the moon captivates anybody who looks at it, especially the crescent moon, in my opinion, because it's not a moon that you're going to see unless you're looking for it.
Yeah.
We've all seen the full moon, but how many of us have seen that thinnest phase of the moon? You have to look for it, and you'll fall in love with it.
Yeah, and it's beautiful when you see it. During last year's live stream, people were sending in their images, and it's beautiful just seeing that tiny little backwards
So
C-shaped
beautiful
moon.
and so moving. I've met people when they've seen the crescent, they start crying, tears of joy, and the cosmos has that effect on people.
It really does, yeah. Like you say, it's astronomy brings people together and
That's
inspires people, and it's wonderful to see. Hopefully, we're going to be talking again to more of our moon sighters. I think we're just bringing them in just a moment. But one of the things that is important, actually, is that this network of moon sighters... Oh, in fact, here we go.
Hello, well, I can see it's Umar from Birmingham. Assalamu alaikum, Umar, how are you?
Assalamu, I'm very well. How are you guys?
Well, great to see you. Tell us about yourself. Where are you? You've got the new Crescent Society high-vis jacket on, I see. On brand.
Branding's on point. Yeah, we're here in Birmingham in a park called Old Recreation Ground in Yardley. We actually had 200 people sign up to join us for our moon sighting event. We had people from all over Birmingham, and we actually had somebody who mentioned that they've come from India and they have that practice in India and they wanted to come and experience it with us here. But yeah, we've had an amazing turnout. If I just pan, there is a mound just behind me, and as you can see, we've still got loads of people here. We've got a couple of minutes left till moonset. We did have clear skies just behind. So we all came together. People have been sharing food. There's actually like some homeschooling children who've created stuff themselves and they're selling it in one corner, and they're giving the profits of that to charity. So we got a real community collective feeling here in Birmingham.
I'm so moved, Umar, hearing about what's going on at your moon sighting location in Birmingham. And you've been sighting the moon, I think, for at least 5 or 6 years now, from my memory. I want to ask you, what's it like when you do sight the new crescent moon as we bring our next sighters on?
Yeah, for me, I've been doing it for 7 years, and the reason I've been doing 7 years is that opportunity when you do see it, it puts something inside of your heart, inside of your soul, that just makes you want to keep coming back, keep coming back. So even on days like this where it looks very unlikely, we still had all these other beautiful, things that were going on. But just when you do see it, that feeling is almost like it's very difficult to put into words. But it's that warm, fuzzy feeling inside, and it just makes you want to keep going back for more.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Umar from Birmingham, and hopefully we'll see you next month.
Inshallah. Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye, Umar. Next month, because we actually have a live stream every month. Of course, we work with Greenwich once a year for this live stream, but we took the idea from Greenwich and we've run with it on our own Facebook every single month.
Yeah, well, in fact, so how can people find you on those?
Very good. If you're watching, you found us already, but please do share with your friends. We have a new Crescent Society on all social media. That's Facebook, Instagram being our main tools of communication, but we're also on TikTok and X, formerly known as Twitter, but perhaps not as up-to-date on those social platforms. But Facebook and Instagram, certainly.
There we are. Get involved. So from here, we're going to look through our very own telescope again. Now, just to remind you. So, what we are looking at here, you might not be able to see anything at all, or maybe you can. There should be an incredibly, incredibly faint little dot somewhere in here, and it is, I can see something moving around somewhere, but supposedly Saturn is right there, but incredibly faint. So maybe it's not quite coming through in the way that it should. But this evening, Saturn and the moon are incredibly close. So it's possible the moon may be in this field of view. We're just not able to see it. It is incredibly faint. But there we are. Now, while we are, I'm going to say enjoying this view, it's not much that we're seeing right now, though we are trying to bring you a bit of a brighter view. We'll answer a question or two. So, Imad, a question here that's come in that's sort of something that we touched on earlier, but it is an important thing to clarify with people. Why is it that naked eye sightings usually only count? What is wrong with using technology?
I would say it's not wrong to use technology at all. We're using technology right now. We're streaming to you and we're using this telescope. And if the moon was visible to this telescope, it would have been in this field of view in front of you or on your screens right now. So we don't have a problem with using any form of technology. But, and indeed, some people say it's okay to start the calendar month with a telescopic view. But from our perspective and from other people's perspectives, there is a question. What is a crescent moon? Well, I mean, if I ask you as an astronomer, what is a crescent moon? What defines a crescent?
It's a really good question. It's totally dependent on perspective, isn't it,
That's
really?
right. The moon, the new crescent moon is that which we see, and it's dependent on our perspective as humans. And what I'm seeing in this telescope view right now is, even if I was to see something, I wouldn't call it the waxing crescent. I would say we're still in the new moon phase. So one way of looking at it is that the Islamic calendar doesn't begin with the new moon phase, but it begins with the crescent. And the crescent, by definition, is what we humans, from our perspective, can see with our eyes. Imagine I was a bat or a hawk. Maybe I'd see the crescent right now. But would that be Ramadan? Ramadan is a human experience, and our experience of astronomy is that human experience. So that's some of the arguments used by those who don't like to use the telescope to begin the month, but we do use telescopes. We've had the astrophysicists join us, and you've seen our groups are working with astronomers. So we encourage that, we'd love that, and we're here at Greenwich, the home of astronomy. So we're not anti-tech, we're pro-tech, but we're also pro the unadulterated human experience of looking at the moon. But we don't say you're wrong if you use a telescope to begin the month either.
Yeah, well said. And like you said earlier, it's a community experience, and that's really important.
Might I share, actually, the word for crescent in Arabic is hilal, but there's another word for crescent, which is shahr. And shahr means crescent, it also means month. Just like in English, month and moon, it's the similar word. And if we go into the etymological root of the word shahr, it actually means conspicuous, easy to see. So in that, there is a code. The crescent moon is that which you should be able to see. Sometimes we think of the crescent as so difficult to see, elusive. But if we think of it as a timepiece between me and you, or you and me, then it's something which is easy to see. So that's another reason we say use tech, use any telescope you like, but we start the month with the community, with our own eyesight, because it's something we should all be able to see.
Fantastic. So looking through our telescope view, you can see, unfortunately, no new crescent moon, though, again, it's really tough to see. We are using this technology to help us identify the moon, but as we say, less than 1%, really difficult to find as the moon is getting lower and lower on the horizon. So more of the moon's light is being scattered as it travels through the atmosphere to get into that telescope. So from here, we are going to once again talk to more of our moon sighters across the UK from the new Crescent Society and see how they're getting on.
Great.
So across the UK, we have our moon sighters this evening, as we say, spread out all across the UK, as far north as, you know, parts of Scotland and as far south as Jersey, and across the whole of the UK. Hopefully, we're going to be talking to some of them very soon. But Imad as well, so on a night like this where we haven't been able to see the moon and not see the moon with the naked eye.
Great.
Ooh.
I think
look at
we've
this.
just been, we're about to meet somebody here. Hello, assalamu alaikum. I can't see who you are.
That's very nice.
Walaikum assalam.
And who am I speaking to?
Hi from Bradford here.
Oh, how are you?
Myself and Sufyan. We actually have a lot of people from not only New Crescent Society, but there's a lot of crowd. It's a big crowd. Let me just turn my camera around so that you can see the crowds. I don't know if you can see.
We can see there's people scattered around there.
There was a lot more, but because it's getting close to moonset, and I'll just move around.
Tell us
There's
a bit about your...
families and children
Thank
playing.
you so much. So this is an incredible
We've got
view
the
you
youngest
have.
moon spotter in Britain. How old?
3 months old.
3 months old.
Okay.
Says no moon today.
No moon.
She says no moon today.
She's as young as the moon today. A very, very
One
young
more
moon.
day of stuff in your face.
And is it the first time you've come to see the crescent?
Yes, the first time.
First time, Imad.
Well, we were
So
looking...
this location in Bradford is called Top of the Moon. Sorry, Top of the Moon.
Well, we're changing its name to Top of the Moon.
Top of the world. I keep saying Top of the Moon. Top of the world, and you can see why, because this is Bradford City down here, and this is a big Park Hill area, and then the western horizon. Can you see how far you go?
Incredible. You've got an incredible view.
North to northwest to southwest even, and where are we? Missed it. There we go. The crescent would have been seen about here.
Where the little wind turbines are.
Wait, I don't know if you can see in the distance where the wind turbines are.
I think we could just about make them out. So I think what you're saying, Shema, is
We've
very
not
clear
seen
view,
it
but you've not seen
because
the
it's not dark enough. I mean, it might look dark to you on the screen, but it's still very much light, so it's really difficult to see anywhere. We have brought binoculars, but as I understand, it's going to be a difficult moon anyhow.
Well, thank you so much, Shema, for having a look, and it seems like you've had a great time with all your friends in Bradford there. Thank you so much, and we're going to say goodbye to you. And we'll see you again, hopefully, for our next moon sighting.
Really difficult to hear you because of the crowd. I think we must have about at least 150 people here.
Incredible. I was just saying, thank you so much for all of your efforts, and we'll see you next time, Shema. I don't think she can hear us, but I think the party atmosphere behind her was too loud for her. But as you can see, it's another huge crowd. She said 150 people. They had a great view. No one's seen the moon with their eyes. And here at Greenwich, we haven't seen the moon with the telescope. And I think actually this is a real, something actually very positive, because it's confirmed to me the data that comes from His Majesty's Nautical Almanac Office. It said it's going to be very, very hard to see. You might see it with a telescope, but it's still hard to see with the telescope, and you're not going to see it with your eyes. So it just shows to me how accurate the data from HMNAO actually is.
There you go. So it verifies things. And like you said, the mood in the atmosphere is still a positive one of going out and moon sighting. It's not a negative mood that the moon's not been seen.
No, not at all. And you know, sometimes you have to not see the moon one month to really enjoy it when you see it the next month. You know, just like the moon itself, it's not always there. It comes out in the night. And sometimes if it was there every day, it would be a bit boring.
By the way, yeah, because we're going to be... Okay.
Oh, okay, and we've got somebody else. Hello, how are you? This is Mustafa from Exeter. How are you, Mustafa? Can you hear me, Mustafa?
Hi, not sure if you can hear me.
We can hear you. Tell us where you are, Mustafa, and if you've had any luck in seeing the moon or not. I feel like Mustafa can't hear us, but Mustafa is an academic from the University of Exeter, and he's actually with a group of students in Exeter. He's one of our southwestern sighters, and we generally see the moon a bit easier in the southwest, but sadly we saw his face, but we couldn't hear him then.
That's a shame. Now we're sort of running over time, but can we do one more? Can we do one more?
I'll be delighted to.
We've got one more moon sighter to talk to.
Just as they're coming in, what I do want to say to your audience is, you probably haven't seen the moon today, but we'll wait for another half an hour or so just to hear finally. But you will be able to see the moon tomorrow. So even if you didn't see the moon today, you can see the crescent moon, and it's very easy to do. All you have to do is go out and look for the sunset. And when you see the sunset, mark where the sun sets, and the new crescent moon will emerge somewhere near where the sun has set. So have a go tomorrow, and that will be the moon that you're looking for Ramadan. And here we have our friend Asif from Bristol. Assalamu alaikum, Asif, can you hear me? I think Asif is again looking at the screen, but he can't hear me. Hello, Asif.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. I can hear you.
Oh, fantastic. Tell us,
Hello.
Asif, assalamu alaikum, how are you? I've told them you're in Bristol. Tell us a bit about your moon sighting location and what's happened today.
Yeah, it says that you're mute.
The wonders of live broadcasting.
It says that the Greenwich Meridian's mute. They can hear you, but...
Okay, Asif,
I can't hear them, though.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Great to see you, Asif. Tell us where you are.
I'm at Troopers Hill in Bristol.
Uh-huh.
And I've got a team of moonsighters here that have come to see if they can spot the Ramadan moon. So I've got my brother, my sons, I've got a few friends, a couple of colleagues as well. And my brother has his telescope set up as well.
Incredible.
But there's no positive sighting of the moon so far.
Well, thank you so much for looking, Asif, and thank you so much for using your telescope down in Bristol to have a look. We're going to leave you now and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Asif. It's interesting, actually. Quite a few of our moon sighting locations were set up with telescopes. And some of them, they've worked with local astronomy groups. That's a great idea. I found local astronomy groups so enthusiastic about working with our moon sighters.
Yeah, it's really brilliant to see. And so we've sort of seen this evening what we expected, which is for people not to be able to see the moon, which, like you said, is backed up by the predictions by His Majesty's Nautical Almanac Office, those visibility maps that we looked at right at the beginning.
That's right, it's backed up by that, and it shows me that we haven't, in the UK at least, entered into the phase of the moon that we refer to as the waxing crescent. We're still in the phase of the moon, that invisible phase of the moon, if you like, which is sometimes referred to as the new moon. So from our perspective, we haven't seen the moon here in the UK, and therefore if you're following the moon sighting of the UK or our locality here, it appears that Ramadan has not yet begun, and we may need to add an additional day and round up to 30 days, and it may be that the first fast will be on Sunday. I'm not saying that definitively because I'm going to wait for about another half an hour just in case somebody has seen the moon. But I don't think so, actually. We've had a very, very good attempt at looking for the moon with the telescope here in Greenwich and other locations. So it seems unlikely to me. So you have one more day to prepare for Ramadan if you're following the local moon sighting.
There we go. And as we bring the live stream to a close now, how would you sum things up? What is your takeaway from this evening?
It has been a very exciting evening for me, actually, because I was so interested to see could we see it with the telescope? And the fact we didn't see it with the telescope really reassures me, because I'm not going to be fasting tomorrow, and I go in tomorrow with that sense of security. Oh, we didn't see the moon, but we gave it a real good go. So I'm really happy, I'm really pleased. I'm so grateful and honored to be here with the Royal Observatory Greenwich in this location. And it's been a long journey for me, and the journey continues, and I really hope that one day we in the UK will be able to have our own united calendar. That was the first question that we had from the comments in the YouTube or Facebook comments. I think it's coming because, as you can see, year on year, the crowds just grow, and people love to be connected to the Crescent.
There we go, fantastic. Yes, and yeah, what a night it's been. And that brings us to the end of our live stream. So we'd like to say a huge thank you to our moonsighters from the New Crescent Society. A huge thank you to yourself, Imad, of course. And as well as that, a huge thank you to our team here at the Royal Museums Greenwich, to our AV team, our web team, my fellow astronomers, and particularly up on the roof of Flamsteed House right now, Greg, Gideon, Freya, and Dan. You now have our permission to get inside into the warm. Thank you very much. And finally, of course, to all of you at home as well for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much. We wish you all clear skies for the rest of the evening, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good night.